Hello and welcome to Frame and Reference. I'm your host, Kenny McMillan, and you're listening to episode 93 with Xavier Dolleans, DP of a couple episodes of Miss Davis on Peacock. Enjoy.
So the Miss Davis show, did that premiere at South by?
Yeah, I did that show. Actually, I did the episode 3 and 4. So in Austin, it was episode 1 and 2, done by my good friend Joe Anderson. He's the main DP actually of Mrs. Davis, and he did episode 1, 2, 5, and 8, and I did 3 and 4. And two other DP did one did episode 7, and another one, JKTL, did some part of episode 3 and 4 also in Los Angeles. So we were 4 of them.
Nice. Was that your first time at South by?
Yeah, first time at a festival. First time also in Austin. Great city, a lot of sun. If I have to compare to Los Angeles where I am now. And also good. That's a good place where the tech is meeting the TV and also the movies and the music. So that was really interesting to meet all those people from different backgrounds, and to talk about technology, but also science, and also what is going to happen next, and what are you going to see in the movies and in the TV series related also to artificial intelligence, That was a big topic, actually.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, there's like 3 questions in there. But the AI thing, we'll just jump into that. Did you happen, I just talked about this recently with a animator, but did you see the, was it Corridor Digital AI animation thing?
Yeah.
What was your take on that?
That's crazy what we can do now, and I think we have to use artificial intelligence as a tool, and be aware of the tool, and probably put some limit of the tool to, for the tool to stay a tool, but that's a great tool just to have an interaction, to be able to ask question and see what the IA can answer or can show you as an image, and you say you can take another lead, it can change your way of thinking about something, or it can open you to something that you don't know also as a tool, as an image too. Right now I'm using, when I do some mood board actually for some interviews that I can do on other show, I'm creating a category in the mood board saying, oh, look what an artificial intelligence can create with some keyword from the script itself, visually speaking. Just, this is more a joke, because I put a lot of movie frame references and then a small part with artificial intelligence mood, but actually it works, if you are. So no, that's a great tool for me, and that's crazy, the speed also. The speed. This is like every day, new announcement, a new app, a new plugin, a new something. Just today, I've discovered plugin to use ChatGPT and to connect it to, to companies to find some airplane business trip and to find the best one to.
Oh, really?
You can, yeah. You have many plugins for many things. Yeah, you can connect ChatGPT to internet actually through those plugins.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I saw Google just came out with their version of ChatGPT, and I was giving it a test, and I was like, man, this is not. This hasn't made it.
That's crazy, but that's also a really good tool. And Damon Lindelof, one of the showrunners, the main showrunner of the show, was talking about that a lot, in the conferences that he did. That was really interesting for him. This is also a tool, and you can have interaction. You can give some leads, some ideas, and you can see what the artificial intelligence is giving you back. But also you have to set some limits for sure. And yeah, let's see what can happen with that. But every time I'm using it, this is really interesting. I've done it many times,
Yeah. On the subject of There's a conference that Adobe does called Adobe Max, and it's kind of similar to South by in that it's like a lot of different, styles of people around. And I find that gives me a lot of creative energy, because being surrounded around by filmmakers all the time, conversations kind of tend to be the same. Guys, but if you're talking to like musicians, for instance, I'm a musician, like that becomes more fun, and you can kind of draw parallels between your work and theirs. Did you find that at South by?
Yeah, exactly the same. Exactly what you are saying. That was really new for me because I've done many festivals, and for example, Cannes Film Festival, Cannes Image Film Festival is a good one to be connected in a good way between. This is a good sweet spot between artistry and technique and the technical side. Some like Cinegear is very technical, but this is cine, and then that one was really like open to everyone in a way. And I met a guy from a company who did some stats about basketball player. I met another guy. I met a girl about she's in the financing part of artificial intelligence. So you can see the trend. And you have new ideas. You see new people. Yeah, that's really inspiring, and that was very new for me. This kind of festival.
Yeah. Where do you find yourself on the sort of tech artistry line? Because a lot of DPs, sometimes come from a very artistic background, don't care about the tech, and some are like myself tend to come from excitement about technology, and that brought me into cinematography.
Yeah, I think I'm just in the middle. Actually, initially I was I'm fascinated by both actually, and I'm fascinated by images and also by the technology and the tools. So I think for me, there is something really interesting in the work when you work as a DOP, which is you are using the tool to create an idea and to reveal this idea in the real world. You create something from scratch from an idea, and you know about the tools. So that's very important to know about the tools, especially right now, because everything is digital and everything is evolving very quickly. And at the same time, you have to be inspired and to see many other pictures, and painting, sculpture, photography, whatever the experience is, traveling the world. You can see many images and lights, situation of lighting also when you travel a lot. So all of that is mixing, and then when you have an idea, this kind of bridge, between your idea and the real world. This is you as a DOP, and you take some tools, and you use those tools to create something. This is really fascinating, that bridge for me, and that's why I'm really in the middle. So I'm not a geek, but I'm in touch about everything happening, and I'm trying new things. And I'm trying also to explain to some directors and producers about the new and the new things and the technology around. So I'm right in the middle, I think.
Geek adjacent. Did I see? Was it correct that you used to do 3D cinematography? I know that's kind of fallen out of fashion recently, but like earlier in your career, were you doing 3D cinematography in the past? I ran across your Mandy profile.
Yeah, no, actually I've done, it was a trend at the time, just after the first Avatar. Actually, everybody wanted to shoot in 3D with stereography. So I did a training, and I did a lot of shooting, like more small commercial corporate thing at that time, probably for 2 years. After the release of the movie. So I did the training, and then for 2 years I shot a few things, but not that much actually right now. Nobody is really asking for something like that right now. So I'm not really into it anymore.
Yeah. Did you find that because I think that was on your Mandy profile, did you find that Mandy was very helpful? Because I have yet to actually land a job on that fucking site.
Yeah, actually, that's a good place to meet people in some project or crazy project, and to start also. We have the same kind of website in France called Cinecours. I don't remember precisely the name. Maybe they are not existing anymore right now, because it was like 20 years ago, but I checked recently, like 5 years ago, and they were still existing. So we have the same kind. Those are good tools to put people in contact, actually, and to try to, for short film, short projects. So Mandy was interesting. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. The other thing I saw was that you're did you get started in film photography, or was that just like a class you went to, a school you went to, or something like that?
You mean, how did I start?
Well, just I saw that you had gone to like a class or a school for film photography at one point. Yeah.
Actually, yeah. I did, initially I was really fascinated by the special effects side. I wanted to make some animatronics and fire explosion, those kind of things. And then, but I was like 14, So I discovered this work of special effects on set, and that was the way I was introduced to movie making. And I met a few people in Paris. They told me, "Oh, you should be on a set. You should try to be a trainee on a set, because we are working a lot before to prep, but our shooting days are like only one day to make an effect, and you should try maybe other work and to see how it works." So I did a training on a short film, and I was really fascinated by the work of the DOP. I think probably because of the same aspect of using a tool, being a technician at the service of the creative idea and a visual idea. So I moved to Paris. I was at college. I studied cinema for 1 year. And then I've been on set as a trainee assistant director for 2 years. And after those 2 years, I had the opportunity to be in that school called Louis Lumière, which is a famous school in France. And I was there following a professional training for a few months, actually. And it was around 35 millimeter. At that time, actually, it was probably 18 years ago, and we were still talking about the 35 millimeter cinematography as being the main thing in terms of quality. So it was probably 70 years ago. And so, I did that training. But as a DOP at that time, I was doing small thing, and it was in video. It was the beginning of the video, but not even the 5D. No, not even the red.
DVX and the XL2 and all that.
Yeah, with, the mini 35 adapter that you can attach.
Yep. And
you put those single lenses like the Zeiss, Geo, those kind of things wide open at T1.3, and then you lost like 50% of the light, or maybe
it's literally like a 6-stop drop using those buttons.
And also the texture of the moving glass actually was kind of altering the quality of the resolution, the final resolution itself. So I mean, those were crazy tools. And then everybody was still talking about 35 millimeter as a big main quality reference at that time. So I followed that training, and that was really interesting. And I learned the basics of exposure, and I learned the basics of taking some light readings, and I think that was really fundamental for me. And I still now, when I'm taking a reading, I'm still thinking about this training, and that was really great. And But after that, I have to say, I shot maybe a few music videos in 35 millimeter, and then a short film, another maybe like independent movie, and then that was it. I mean, the 5D arrived, and then the red one arrived.
Yeah.
And we all started to work with those tools.
When you had the 35 adapter, did you have the spinning glass one? Because we couldn't get one of those. We had the static glass one where you just had that, quote unquote film grain just locked in, and it looked like you were looking through a window.
I had the spinning one.
Yeah, you're lucky.
Yeah.
I still have my XL2.
Oh yeah.
I have the XL2 and the AF100. What?
This is good to have, actually, because on Mrs. Davis, we did a small flashback. I can't tell anything about that, but
yeah, I can't release this podcast till the show comes out. So,
and then we had to shoot with a video camera, and the director wanted the same look, wanted the the good look, not something that we can emulate with some plugin. So we were looking for a camera, and we were in Spain, and actually that was really hard to find.
Yeah.
So we finally find 2 or 3 of them, and we made some tests, and we ended up with a solution to record the output of it. But actually the camera's internal recorder was still working. So I bought the camera to the production saying, you know what, I want to have this tool because right now if we do something vintage or a flashback or anything, this is a really good tool to have, and this is very hard to find. So I have one also.
Oh, it was an XL2?
XL1.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No, it's still a great thing. The tape deck on mine is busted because I lent it to my friend in college. Yeah, 15 years ago, whatever it was, 18 years ago. And the little FireWire, that tiny little FireWire port is completely shot.
Yeah.
So I was testing. Also, like DV as a look is coming. The kids love DV now. That's their nostalgia.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I found a way to go like RCA or no S-Video to HDMI and then HDMI to an Odyssey 7Q Plus, which is just the most ridiculous. Like, how do you mount that to anything?
Yeah. But even a FireWire cable, this is very hard to find right now.
Or a computer that has a FireWire port on it. That's the other thing. I did a fashion shoot where these guys they're from the UK, and they brought like a little handycam they found that shot DV, and something was busted on it, so it wouldn't even record. But we were like, hey, when you're done recording, how do you plan on editing it? And they're like, oh, we were just going to get like an adapter. And I was like, no, there's no FireWire to USB out there.
Yeah.
So you guys were just going from, you said were you shooting to tape then on that? Or did you have the same setup?
We recorded on tape, but we were also recording with an external recorder. So we find a way, actually the output is SD. So we had a SD to HD converter. And then with the HD converter, we were recording into an Atomos, a chain of box on the camera itself. But that was working very well. And you have the look, and this is the good look. So that's a beautiful tool to use.
Yeah,
that's why I bought it from the production.
It is interesting to go back and go through the tools that are on that camera and realize like how far we've come. Like I remember when recording the SD came out, that was a huge deal. But like even just going like, oh, what color temperature you got? Tungsten, daylight, or custom? Like, see, I remember waveforms when waveforms came out, how big of a deal that was too.
Yeah.
And just seeing how, but you still have like custom picture profiles on the XL series. I don't know about the XL1, but XL2, you can dial in like the look that you want in the camera.
Yeah, you can also a little bit adjust. Actually, this is not a log signal. Actually, you are touching the final image in many ways, but that you can still customize. Actually, this is the basics of the video signal in those kind of camera.
Yeah. Did you do any of that adjustment, or did you just kind of leave it stock and then
no.
worry about it for post?
We checked everything, but we didn't do any adjustment.
Yeah. Did you go with just the XL lenses as well?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The initial set, everything was brand new. Actually, the camera was kind of untouched. I don't know why, but
interesting.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. I guess when 28 Days Later came out, that camera really hit.
Yeah.
For speed. That was one thing I wanted. It seems that I'm just doing some research on it that you've really taken to using the Venice on more of your projects.
Yeah.
Is there a specific reason why you tend to lean towards that? Is it just a good relationship with Sony, or is there other kind of technical considerations?
Now I have a good relationship with Sony, but I mean, no, initially that's a good question. Actually, why I became a big user of Sony Venice. Actually, I don't remember. I think it was in 2018. I was shooting at that time. In 2017, I shot season 1 and 2 of a TV series called Scam. Mm-hmm. Scam France was an adaptation of a Norwegian TV series called Scam. About teenagers, and so we shot season 1 and 2 with Alexa Mini at that time, not LS, the Mini Super 35, and then on season 3 and 4 the script came, and we I was talking with the director saying, we have so many nights, and Scam, we had to shoot like, I don't know, 15 pages a day, like big rhythm, but not on set. So everything was outside. So you are on location and you are shooting at night. And on those scripts, a lot of sequences were happening at night. So I think I was talking with some rentals, and one of them told me, oh, you should try the Vicam 35, and you should try the Sony Venice.
That seems nice.
And so actually I did some tests with Sony Venice, and I did those tests beginning of 2018 with firmware 1, and on firmware 1 only 500 ISO was available at that time. So that was not good. But then when I did the test again for the TV series Scam, it was September, I think, then that was like firmware 2 was released, and you had this new sensitivity, 2500 ISO, like a new world, So basically you have 2 channels of analog amplification. You have the 500, and then you have the 2500, on which you can apply an electronic amplification. So you can play with electronic ISO, you can push it. And at that time I did some tests, and I realized I can push up to 6400 with some noise correction for the post-production in the TV world, for small screen. So we were so happy. That was brand new, and nobody was using those cameras at that time, 2018, especially in France.
Alexa was there.
Yeah, and we realized that our lenses, I was using some Cooke Pencro, so the new one, I mean, not the old S2, S3, but the Pencro classic kind of old lens formulas, but in new housing.
Yep.
And that was the beginning of a trend. And now this is a trend. You have a lot of old lenses formula, not so well corrected, in beautiful housing like Atlas Orion, Xelmos Anamorphic, or Cadwell Chameleon that we were using on Mrs. Davis. So we use those Pencro, and we realized that on, I think it was the 50 millimeter, the 50, the 75, and the 100 they were covering actually the full frame. And all my friends told me, but why are you shooting full frame? So actually we shot season 4 on Super 35, and we were cross-boarding, and I shot all the sequences of season 4 in full frame to have two different looks. And that was very new. And everybody was telling me that, why do you need full frame? And I was like, actually, the image is more precise. And the grain, with the downscale, the grain is smaller. So we can push a little bit more the image, and everything appear a bit smoother on the skin and everything. And we were in 2018, and also then after that, I did a TV series called Mental in 2019, and then I did the use of only the extension unit, the small extension.
Oh, the Rialto.
Yeah, the Rialto. And because the director, he was coming from the 5D world, he was very used to use as a small tool that he can go everywhere with to look for a shot. So I told him, look, we are going to have beautiful quality, and you are going to be free to look for. So on every different show, I've tried to use the Venice in different configuration setups. And then we shot season 5 and 6 of Scam on anamorphic. And it was probably firmware 3 at that time, and they pushed a little bit more the things. And I was so happy with everything in low light. But again, we had so many shots and sequences to shoot in very low light in Paris, and not so much time to light especially the background. You can light the close-up, but you can't light, the wide shot. So I was so happy to push the camera and to discover the camera, and also everything you can have in terms of colors in the low light. And that was very new for me. So I shot since probably 2018, everything with the Sony Venice, except Mrs. Davis, because every time I was doing some parallel test, you put every camera that you know on a parallel side-by-side testing, and you push them doing some contrast and low light, and you can see what you can have in highlights and what you can bring back and everything. So I was like, every time I did the test, every time the Sony Venice was a big winner.
Yeah, it's such a versatile camera.
Yeah. But yesterday I did the same test at the camera division in Los Angeles with the Alexa 35, and maybe now the Alexa 35 is the big winner. I have to confirm those tests with my colorist because he has to work on the images, but something new is happening with that camera. Yeah.
Yeah, I've yet to see anyone I know like use it or be able to really test it. So I'm interested to hear what you come up with when you figure that out. I have also a recent I got the C500 Mark II. So, and that was the first full frame cam. I never shot 5D or anything. I was still, I preferred video cameras, just for XLRs and stuff, but built-in NDs. But it really does, like, everyone, I got the same question. Why do you care about full frame? Especially people who like can't afford it. They like to go, you don't need it. I'm like, yeah, you don't need it. But I've noticed that, like you were saying, it's not, you would assume that it would be like sharper and more clinical, but it's like smoother. Everything's smoother.
Yeah.
I got a GFX 50R, the medium format stills camera. Yeah. And it's like, I don't want to say it's easier to light, but when you do light things, like it feels like you can get every millimeter of fall off instead of like a sharp. It really is nice. And the whole conversation, it's full frame, depth of field. It's like, that's a lens thing, not a sensor thing.
No, that's a question, and that's a good question. And that's funny because actually this is kind of, we have a rush regarding pixel, this is a big run of more pixels. So what's happening is, if we have to extend the size of the sensor, what is the next standard that we already know, and we already have the lenses that able to cover it. So from Super 35, we switched to full frame, which is a regular format for photography. It was known at VistaVision in the film world. So that's funny to see that. And then now we are moving to 65, which is an already known format in film photography too. We are pushing. There is a rush for more pixels, but this is not really the question of more pixel, because now we see that when we have more pixel, we can resolve a better image. So if we have a round shape, this is easier to resolve the round shape with more pixels. So everything seems to be softer and you have a smooth image. And so this is a big question, but for me, this is not a real issue to have more pixel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also, there is another reason why everybody moved to full frame. Actually, that's funny because when Netflix said, you know what, we need a 4K negative. Right. Actually, the ARRI camera were not able to do that. Right. It was 3.2. So ARRI did very quickly something that they stacked together two sensors, saying, we are able to do more horizontal resolution. By the way, it's going to be full frame. Huh? It's okay for everybody because it's kind of a trend right now. So maybe we are going to be. So then everybody move full frame, but not really because of the full frame thing, more because of the need of more than 4K horizontal resolution as a negative, as everybody is, as ARRI is the main, actor of the camera industry. I mean, they pushed everybody to use the full frame, but right now when we are shooting with the Alexa 35, you realize that the camera is a lot better in terms of sensor, low lights, highlights, color, and everything. So I think you can shoot a lot of things in Super 35. This is a proof that probably the push to the full frame is very interesting, but not necessary for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and my colleague from ProVideo Coalition, Art Adams, just put a video. He works for ARRI now. Yeah. and he's their lens specialist, but he just did a video that came out like 2-3 days ago at the time of this recording, about the reveal color science that they're using. Obviously the highlight retention on the 35 is nuts, but the way that they've been able to handle those outlier colors, your classic brake lights, purples, have really been handled well on the 35.
Yeah, from what I have seen yesterday, I mean, they did something great. And also in the low lights, with the ES function and all the texture tools, this is a very good, those are very good new tools. And this is great because that means that they are listening a lot to the DPs, Many people are asking for those things. So that's great.
Yeah, that's actually something I didn't want to ask you specifically, but since you have played with that camera, is the texture tool basically just imparting grain into the original camera negative? Because the way it was kind of described to me privately was like, well, DPs hated that the colorist or the editor could fuck with the image. So they're like, well, I'm just going to put the grain that I want in it. And now they can't get rid of it.
Yeah, this is the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
If you shoot in ProRes or if you shoot in RAW, this is not a metadata. This is burned into the image. So you have to make very specific tests, especially in theater. If you are shooting for a movie, you have to make some tests on a big screen. But you have also to make some tests if you are shooting for a small screen, actually, because you have to push a little bit more if you want to feel the grain,
Yeah.
So the grain thing is very interesting, because we are talking about the grain to add some texture and everything. And many times when you are in post, you are working with a colorist, and when you do the export and when you stream an image with the grain, you can have many artifacts happening, macro block and I don't know, bending, you can have so many artifacts. So right now I know that Netflix, they are using a specific platform. When you want to add some grain, you can test on the platform. You can see what your final image will be. And that's a very interesting way of working with that, because most of the time when you had some grain, you don't know what's going to happen when you are going to stream.
Well, as far as I'm aware, Netflix, maybe this was someone guessing, but I thought I saw like a white paper where Netflix was basically taking the original image, streaming it, and then on the user side, reapplying the grain.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. I don't know about this, but I know that for the test, when you do your grade, you have an access to a specific platform to see what's going to happen.
That's nice of them.
Yeah, that's a good way also to have a good conversation with the cinematographer, with all the filmmakers. Actually, this is because everybody is asking for some grain.
Right. Well, and it kind of goes against the idea that we want higher and higher resolution, because you do for capture, but for display, we end up squashing all that resolution and a lot of that dynamic range a lot of times.
That's a big topic. Huh? We are talking about that since the beginning of the digital age, actually, I think.
Yeah. Same thing with, frame rate. Like the younger folks seem to think that 60 frames is clearer. And you're like, yes, but for fantasy, for films, not all films are fantasy films, but like for transporting you somewhere else, for some reason, like lowering the resolution, lowering the temporal resolution with frame rate, fucking with colors so that they look unreal, allows you to go to that place. It's not reality. It's not the news. It's something else. It's like a storybook. Yeah. Or like a painting.
Yeah, I do agree with that. But also for me, this is very good to have the opportunity to use those tools, because we were like 24, you know what I mean? Or we were, I don't know, 50 or in the US. I mean, you know what I mean? We were stuck to some frame rates and also some ratio, the official cine ratio. And now this is the elastic frame. You can do whatever you want with your framing and the ratio. You can put your ratio. And this is so great to have those tools to express. I mean, this is a frame rate, this is a ratio. You can touch to so many things right now. I'm sure that if you, at the beginning of the cinema, I mean, if you ask to the very, very old DPs at that time, if they were all still alive, well, look, this is the tool that we have now. And I'm sure that they would say, oh, this is great. Can we test that? Can we test that? Oh, wow, I can't believe that. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So for me, this is, I mean, all those evolutions are really great. And you don't have to use that on every movie, but this is good to know that it exists as a tool.
Yeah. It did feel like for the longest time, even with early digital film, you know, that you were constantly fighting against the technology to get what you wanted, you know, film, for instance. And then when you were an expert, you knew you could like kind of sit back and go, well, I know what my restrictions are. You know, one quote that I've quoted a bunch is Adam Savage has said that like when problems come to you, it's great because, or restrictions, because it just hacks options off of your decision tree. So once you have a narrower set of options, a set of tools, you're able to go, oh, I only have 3 choices. Great. I'll pick between one of those 3 and still, instead of stressing about the 5th one that you don't have.
Yeah, for sure.
And now we have all of them.
This is part of the creative process, but you still have so many issues happening, you know, and many situations where you have to make those choices.
Yeah. It is funny how, you know, a company like Netflix or whoever can set really arbitrary restrictions, you know, 4K 3.2 is not enough, or any deliverable restrictions. But then at the same time, streaming has really opened up, as you're saying, like use any frame, any ratio you want, use any, you know, use any color you want because of digital grading and all that.
For me, especially being in France, when I saw Netflix some years ago, I mean, just arriving in France, and with all the protocol and the things they were asking, that was very new, but that was a way to push the things up, actually, you know, in terms of quality, in terms of, now we are all going to shoot in 4K negative for the digital negative at the minimum, you know, and they were also, I never worked for Netflix directly, but many friends of mine, and I was talking with some people from the technical side in Netflix. I have a good friend of mine who is in charge of the color workflow, color pipeline for the Europe movies and series, and what they are doing is kind of set a standard, but in a good way. And they are talking a lot about color space. You know, they are talking a lot. So for everybody, it was like, now, guy, you have to know in which color space you are going to shoot. You have to know more. You have to think more about the resolution, about your lenses, the ratio. You have to explain us why you want to shoot like that. So for many people, it was like some restrictions, but for me, it was pushing the quality and don't forget that you are working with a private studio also. For the French people, that was very new.
Sure. Yeah. You know, I this is kind of jumping back quite a bit, but as I was doing research on you, I found your reel from 2013.
Oh, wow.
On YouTube. And I was wondering, still looks good, but I was wondering if you can like recall that reel specifically, like what things do you think have changed about your sort of approach to shooting, your approach to lighting from that version of you to now? Things maybe that have changed, or maybe things that have stayed the same.
Yeah, I mean, you are learning on every project. You know, this is a very basic answer, but the thing, at that time I was not working that much on the TV side, so I started on the TV side with very, very low cost program, shooting like the first one was 18 pages a day. Actually, this is not low cost. This is fast shooting.
Right.
You know, because the quality, we needed a very good quality. We were, it was a show not for the web or internet. It was for the French TV network, actually. So that was not low cost. That was fast shooting. And we were shooting 18 pages in every crew. So we were shooting 36 pages a day. 2 crews with 4 cameras. And at that time I learned a lot, because I learned a lot about shooting with 2 cameras and going very fast and using not so much lighting, very basic kit. I think, it was just a small truck for 2 cameras and the grip equipment and the lighting equipment. So I learned a lot how to use those 2 cameras, and I learned about using what's going to happen, because you know that you are going to shoot only this sequence on 1 hour, not the full afternoon, like on a movie, you know. So you have to shoot very fast. You have to be aware about the sun, and you can say, oh, something is happening good with the sun. You can shoot like this right now, and it's going to be nice, and it looks nice actually. And so I moved to other TV series like Scan, still shooting very fast with more money. And then we did also Germinal. And Germinal was the final point of this part of my life, because I moved from a show to another show with more money every time. And I kept in my mind how to shoot very fast, to light faces beautifully, and to try to, from that time, from 2013, to keep what I like, but to learn how to do it very quickly and efficiently, to shoot for TV with 2 to 3 cameras. And I think it took me time to find back this technique. I mean, to find a good technique, to have the same quality of what I was doing in 2013 on short film, for example, and to have the same quality on Germinal, which was a TV series show. So it was a long travel to, you know what I mean, to really discover how to do those things, but a lot more efficiently.
Yeah, that's actually legitimately one note that I had was going to be how, if you could share any of those kind of maybe tips on how to, because I always ask this of television DPs especially, is like, you've probably worked faster than anyone else. I've 36 pages a day is a fucking lot. But
no, it was 18 for one crew. It was 18.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Yeah. Still though, but any sort of tips on how to achieve a good high quality result from, you know, limited resources and limited time?
That's a good question. I think the first thing is to work with a good director.
Yeah.
Which means a director who is able to understand what is happening in terms of light if we do certain type of scene. So, and that means also a director with a strong visual sense. That's very important, because then you are finding altogether the good angle very, very, very quickly. When you arrive when you scout a location, you are finding the good spot and what is working for certain sequence. So that's very important to be in touch with your director, because if not, you spend more time talking on set about this is more a negotiation on every sequence, and then you are losing the time. So the first thing is to be very friend with the director. The second thing is probably to, I don't know. There is a way to work in TV when you do the wide shot first and then you do the close-up, basically.
Right.
Huh? And this is really helpful in terms of light. So this is very important to be able to light those wide shots and to think ahead about what is going to happen for the close-ups, you know, and what kind of quality do I want to have, what kind of contrast, what kind of feeling do I want to take in that specific sequence. So that's, you have to, if you want to use your time very efficiently, you have to prep a lot. You have to do a lot of, I'm doing a lot of light blend, because you can try to arrive in the morning and not doing that. And actually it's going to work, but you are not going to use the time as much efficiently as I prep a lot. I do all the light blend. I know what my sequence or I know what kind of look I want for that. And everybody around is know about that. My gaffer, my key grip, you know, they are all connected to my Google Drive, and they know they have the light blend coming and they are asking good questions. And on the day you are shooting very fast, but everybody know what's going to happen. And then you do more in the same time. a lot more in the same time, especially if you have a good crew and a crew that you know for a long time and you prep a lot and then you still have 10 to 15 pages to shoot, but you don't have the same result. So I would say 1, director, 2, think your lighting plan ahead and being able also to improvise a lot, especially in TV, because as you are shooting not on a long period, you can use a light. You can say, oh, the sun is coming right now and it's going to be for 1 hour. This is the time we have to shoot the sequence. So let's shoot with the sun. This is something that you can't do when you shoot a whole afternoon. You have to say, oh, I have the sun right now. Do I want to use it for 1 hour? And then I have to mimic the sun for the rest of the day. So yeah, you have to improvise a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a business, he's a Navy SEAL, but there's a guy named Jocko Willink who's kind of ethos is discipline equals freedom. And I think that applies very well to pre-production. Is like, if you're disciplined enough to spend the time and effort in pre-production, do the scouting and everything, the shoot day frees you up. It's a lot less stressful when you don't have to have those negotiations in situ.
Yeah, and that's crazy because many people think that because you are working very fast, you can't prep for everything you have to do. And this is not true. Actually, you can prep. This is a lot of time. This is extra time on the weekend, nighttime after the sets. You can work and you can prep, and you are going to realize actually that things are going to be smoother on set, and you can do a lot more, even if you have short time to do things. So that's really. And then actually, this is funny because this is probably the same amount of preparation for the big project. You know what I mean?
Right.
Even if you have more time on the set, you prep the same way.
It's yeah. You know, you had mentioned Germinal, and I had seen you'd done a few presentations on getting the show LUT for that show and shooting for people listening. Basically, you shot this expired film stock or old film stock with the Venice, and then had your colorist and your color scientist kind of figure out those contrast levels and then applied them to color.
Yeah, we did all that.
Yeah, I've done similar things trying to image color film stocks, you know, just to make LUTs for my own nerdy reasons. But I was wondering what your relationship is like with your colorists. Was that a specific, like, kind of technical thing that you guys achieved, or are you always kind of really in the trenches when it comes to your colorist work? Or
we are working a lot together. I mean, even when we have no movies or no TV series coming, we are talking, and we are talking about everything new, and we are talking about beautiful things that we are seeing. So we are talking basically about everything we like. We have the same taste. I think it is really important to have a colorist with the same taste as you. We know each other since probably 10 years now, and I mean, when you find something, this is like when you find your gaffer, you know, for me, the colorist. So that's a very important part, especially if you want to push things. That's true. So we on every project, we think on every project now, I'm trying to show him the mood board, where we are going to go. And we are talking about some look, some cameras, some lenses. He knows a lot about lenses. He's a photographer himself. I really like that because he is very sensitive to the images. And so we are talking about lenses, characteristic of lenses. So I'm shooting some tests. I'm sending the test. He's working in Montreal right now. He's in Mel's laboratories. And I mean, we are connected. And then once we decide a look, he's working on his side, and I'm shooting some tests. We are applying the look, and then probably a few things need to be fixed. So that's why we work also with a color scientist. She's Florine Bell, so he's Karim El Katari, and Florine Bell, she's a color scientist. We are working a lot together, and we are saying to Florine, look, this is what we like in that image, but we need that to be applied for the whole movie in every situation for that camera, without any color artifact, without any impact about exposure or everything. We need to have something very, very precise. And she is also she has a strong artistic taste also. So she's doing a look from that, but more technical look. Then we apply the look on some test and we speak all together. This is a very collaborative process for me, and I'm learning a lot doing that. I don't want to be the DP saying, I want the black like this, I want the color like that. Right. Just someone that pushes a button. I want this to be a collaborative and respectful process. And at the same time, they know that I have the final word, you know? Right. This is very clear. So we are working this way. And Florine, every time she's, you know, she offers different look, and from the strongest one to the lightest one. And we are applying the look, and then she's correcting a little bit back, and then we start the shooting. And after a few days, still I'm calling her saying, "Oh, can you adjust that and that?" So, and Karim is following all my dailies. Actually, he's watching my dailies, saying, "Pay attention to that. You are doing this, and I'm seeing that on the lenses. Maybe you should." And yeah, so we are working this way, and this is very collaborative. And I think if you talk to every big cinematographer that we like, everybody is backed with a very solid colorist. You know what I mean? So this is something that I'm a big listener of the podcast Tim Dickens. You know, of course. Yeah. And every time, I mean, you can feel that you are not alone. You know, you can't be alone to do those things.
Yeah. Actually, that podcast inspired this one during the pandemic. And I actually, this is stupid, but not only did I get the photo book, but I got both James and Roger to sign it.
Okay.
They came to Santa Monica to do a book signing, and I gave them a sticker from this podcast, and I was like, "You guys inspired this podcast." And James was like, "Oh, cool," and Roger went, "Uh-huh." It's very quiet, man.
Yeah, and that's funny because actually Karim, my colorist, he offered me that book. So
it's a great little photo book.
We have a very good relationship.
Okay.
Yeah. No. Yeah, that's. I mean, the relationship with the colorist can be an ego thing. You know, when you have an ego talking more than another one, that's not a good thing. I mean, you should probably change your colorist or talk to him or her. You know what I mean? Because this is really important to have someone really good visually and technically also.
Yeah, I've done because of the pandemic. I but during the pandemic, I was a colorist because I had been coloring my own stuff for years. And I wouldn't say that I'm like a super professional or anything, but I've done a couple features and like small a couple documentaries. And obviously I learned a lot, but definitely made me a better DP because I realized like what I can fix and what I can't.
Yeah.
And like what to ask of post and what so same thing with editing. I think editing makes you a better DP as well when you know like, oh, we don't need that shot. Oh, temporally this won't work. Like instead of being the DP that's like, no, I want my cool dolly shot. It's like, we're not going to use it. Like just knowing that you're not going to use it. You're like, it's going to go. I did want to know what the difference was between a color scientist and a colorist, because I don't actually know.
Actually, initially Karim was working at Eclair Laboratory, which is a very famous laboratory in France since probably 100 years. You know, they were very big in terms of film processing. And Florine, she was a color scientist she was an in-house color scientist. So she was in charge of color management and color issues that you can have with the digital workflow, basically. And she was trying to fix everything and to develop good tools for the laboratory itself to be able to handle many different files and color spaces and be aware of new technology, testing new things. So, and in every big post-production facility, you have a color scientist. You can find one. So what happened is Eclair shut down a few years ago, probably, 5 years ago. And then they were freelance. So Karim was freelance for a time, then now he's working for Mels, and they have their own color scientist. And Florine was also a color scientist freelance, and then she moved to MPC now. So she's color scientist for the VFX pipeline of MPC. You know, so you can have color scientists in every branch that you have in post-production facilities, but there are. I mean, every time you know that there is someone in charge, because you can also have very small post-production facility, and they don't have this. But in every big one, you have someone in charge, and you know that you are going to be back. And you have to be in touch with that person if you do something very specific, you know. Even if you don't, actually, this is always good to know that person and to be able to talk with the person and to explain what you are doing, what can be fixed, and what can... Many times she's helping me when I mix cameras, you know. No.
Oh, sure.
So when I'm mixing cameras, actually, she's doing something very magic that when we are doing the color grading, we don't have to look for a lot of, to push a lot to find a good way to mix every camera, actually.
Yeah. So basically her job is to make the creative technically work.
Yeah.
And set the boundaries.
Yeah. And also, absolutely. And also she has a very strong artistic taste also, which is important, because you can ask her and she can tell, oh, I prefer that. And I asked to Karim and he told me most of the time he prefers something else. And I prefer a third thing. So we are like, no, guy, we have to, no, I'm joking. But that's very interesting also, because Karim and Florine, they are probably seeing more pictures than me in terms of what's being shot, because Karim, you know, color grading is like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So he's doing a lot of movies. So, and for Florine, this is the same thing. She's seeing a lot of pictures coming from the FX side, from many other DPs. So she has, and they have a strong background, and you can have some advice from them. So that's great to have those people working with you.
Yeah, totally. With it's kind of shifting gears a little bit because we're starting to hit the time limit, but with Miss Davis, I did want to ask, like, what, because it does look different. I was looking at Germinal and I was like, that looks fucking cool. That's like, I like that. And then Miss Davis, obviously very different look, but also you weren't the only DP. What was your interaction like with the other DPs, and how did you guys unify that look?
Actually, I met Joe Anderson at the beginning of September, and I moved to Spain very quickly, and we instantly clicked together, and we talked a lot about the look of the show. He shared with me the mood board and what he did. I had an access to all the dailies also, and some first edits of the first episode also. So he was explaining me everything that he did about the look. He had a very strong look in terms of lookup table, the file that he was using. And it was kind of a Technicolor 2 strip, you know, the look itself.
Yeah.
And that was very interesting. And we were shooting anamorphics with Caldwell Chameleon. So very strong anamorphic look too. And he explained me how, because I had a lot of questions about what T-stop is going to be used outside, for example, or inside. How do you light your night work? Is it going to be blue, or is it going to be monochromatic, or what did you do about that? And as the main character is traveling in episode 3 and 4, so traveling in other countries. So he told me, we did that, but you are also very free to do your own things because they are traveling those countries. So
that's nice.
Yeah, so that was for me very good news, because that means that I'm free in a way, you know. So I have a look. Actually, that's funny, because when you take a lookup table and you take those lenses and you can take every DP and you shoot a wide shot outside, it's going to be the same look, you know what I mean? Or the wide shot. I mean, I'm joking a little bit, but you know what I mean? When you have the lenses already, the camera selected, the lookup table done, when you shoot outside, you can control the light for sure, but you have the beginning of something which is common to what has already been done by the previous DP. Yeah. And he was also shooting episode 5 in Spain. So I was able to connect with him to show him picture, and he was watching my dailies. I was watching his dailies. So we had a very good connection. And then what happened is in post-production, he had to move from the lookup table and redo the lookup table in the AC's color space.
Yeah.
Because this lookup table was done for Rec 709, so we had to redo one, and it changed a little bit the look of it. And when I did the color of episode 3 and 4, actually I was with Tony Damore, the colorist from Picture Shop, and Tony told me, look, this is a look that we set for episode 1 and 2, so this is a new start for us, and we stick to that actually,
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's good. Aces is a weird operating space. I tried it a few times. It does seem to change your image in a way that I guess I'm not used to. I shouldn't say it's bad or good, but I'm just not used to it. I'm much more used to working in either linear or log or some abstraction. DaVinci wide gamut now. But I guess especially if you're going to be doing VFX, Aces is super helpful.
Yeah, actually Aces, this is just basically a bigger color space, and
right.
And so every other color spaces are able to fit into it, and you can make them match in a way in certain place of the color space. So this is a very good tool when you want to match some cameras. This is a very good tool when you want to have the best post-production possible in terms of color pushing and managing and doing a lot of things with color. And this is also a very good space when you are doing some HDR master. Now, so actually this is a space that you have to use. So this is why we were in HDR also, because in Aces, because we have to make a HDR master, And but when you have the good color scientist, you can still match your look. I mean, when we are working with Florine and Karim, they are creating the look in Aces first, but then Florine she's exporting some lookup table for the Rec 709, and you can't tell that the look has been done in Aces, because she's like setting some boundaries, as you told me. And so Aces could be a bit strange to work with, but actually if you have the good person, again, this is very easy to work with. And when you have a nice post-production facility and a colorist and the color scientist or people in charge of color science, you can work very easily with that color space. The good thing to do is to start to sync that color space in pre-production.
Yeah. Did you have to change your approach to lighting, knowing that you were giving HDR deliverables, or are you just kind of letting that final trim kind of take care of it?
A little bit. We talked a little bit about that. We knew that it's going to, that it was happening this way, that it's going to happen this way. So for highlights, sometimes just checking your highlights, what is going to be outside. But again, if you want to burn things, because this is burned in the Rec 709, you can still burn them in the Aces,
Right.
So this is, we were talking a little bit about low lights and those kind of situation, but not that much.
Yeah, I think from what I remember, like some conversations I had with DPs about when HDR first came out, it was like, because obviously the TV salespeople were like, you can get really bright, and everyone went, oh, great. And then everyone went, I don't care. Like anything above whatever 500 nits is like it blows your eyeballs out. Like, and visually, no one likes that anyway. It feels like most people are kind of shooting for quote unquote SDR. And then there's just a little bit of extra that you can do some fun stuff with.
Yeah, but and also, I mean, you have some contrast and some lowlights also, because we are talking a lot about highlights, but actually the lowlights also are a lot more interesting to work with in the HDR. And also the color space is a bit bigger. So in terms of color that you can put on screen, this is really interesting. HDR is not only about the contrast, this is also about the whole image quality itself. So you don't have to use it on the full, range actually of the contrast available.
Right.
You can, that's the thing actually. That's why so many people are saying, oh, but this is too much. But actually, you don't have to use only the contrast. You can use the color also and the blacks and everything. So yeah.
You buy a race car, you don't have to do 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, for sure.
What was your kind of general? Obviously, you had to kind of. Well, it sounded like you had some freedom, but what was your kind of generalized approach to shooting Miss David? Was it kind of like a more naturalistic show? Because it is kind of a sci-fi show almost, or like a fantasy, science fiction-ish kind of show. So did you lean into that genre? Did you lean more into the sort of Holy Grail kind of Indiana Jones almost style of look? Like how are you lighting that, and what were those approaches?
Mostly natural. It's the story about someone who is traveling. That's a story about a quest, a quest in many countries. So we try to give the feeling of those countries. I can't tell too much, I don't want to tell too much, but
yeah.
And we also worked. Actually, I was very free to work with hard light and contrast ratio and very high contrast ratio, and sometimes it was very natural when we were outside. When we were inside, I did sequences in dungeon. I did very expressionist lights, and it was, but this is not science fiction with spaceship, you know what I mean?
Right.
This is more grounded, and that's the beauty of the script. This is science fiction because when you want to summarize a script, when you want to explain it to someone, this is very clearly a story about science fiction. But this is so grounded and also so funny, and sometimes sometimes probably a bit sad, but also serious. In a way, you can really think about what's happening, and you have an echo in what's happening right now with artificial intelligence. But this is a grounded show.
Yeah.
And also shooting anamorphic for the 2.39 ratio, you have probably some reference to Western at certain point, in a way. Because this is a quest, because this is a single person or two person traveling, you have many beautiful countryside or thing like that. Yeah.
Even just watching the trailer, even I was like, oh, that looks like a fun. It does look like a fun show that. Recently, I've noticed for the past 2 seasons of this podcast's been on for 3 years. Past 2 years, there was a lot of, and I think it was just because we were all fucking depressed from COVID and shit. But a lot of talk about how either everything's superheroes, although there's some amazing superhero stuff. Greg Middleton shot Moon Knight, and that's a lot of fun. I interviewed him, but it does seem like now there's like more indies coming out and more like quote unquote fun stuff coming out.
Yeah,
like Miss David, and I'm excited for that because that's what got me into movies. Was not so much Criterion Collection; it was more Men in Black and the Matrix. Probably due to COVID. You're right. Like it was also the case in France actually. Yeah. For 1 year, 2 years after, we had many movies and things like that. Yeah. Well, we've gone a little over, so I'll let you go. But I ask everyone the same 2 questions, and I've been interviewing a lot of TV DPs, so this first one doesn't quite work. But if you were to program, anyway, if you were to program a double feature, you go to a movie theater, 2 movies, what would be the other movie or other TV show next to Miss Davis?
Probably a show. I think could be good to do a show, to do a special screening of Damon Lindelof's work, because this guy, he did many interesting TV series. He did Lost, he did The Leftovers, and he did Watchmen. So probably Watchmen or The Leftovers, something like that. A special Damon Lindelof night.
That'd be great.
That's very interesting because those shows, they have big background, you know what I mean, in terms of storytelling. And so for GPs, this is really great to work on those shows because you can tell very interesting stories. And when you start talking about them, actually people in the room are getting also interested about the topic around the show itself, and about the philosophy, about God, about religion, about what's, this is really connected. So yeah, probably something like that. That's a good question, actually. That's the first time someone asked me this kind of question in an interview.
Thank you. After again, first 2 years, I kept asking the same dumb question. I started listening to other podcasts. At first, I didn't want to listen to any other cinematography or filmmaking podcast. And then except for the guests that I would interview, just so I wouldn't ask the same question. And then I realized they all kind of sound the same. So I had to started changing things up. For example, the final question, a lot of people want to ask what's the best piece of advice you got? That's not this question. What's the worst piece of advice you got?
The worst that I got?
Yeah. Or maybe not directed at you specifically if something doesn't come to mind, but just the worst piece of advice that you've seen given or been given.
Follow the rules. Follow the rules. When someone tell you follow the rules, but I'm thinking a lot about, when I started, many people told me you have to be a camera assistant for very long years to become a DP. Mm-hmm. And I was just in the middle at the time where very young people were coming, and it was the beginning of digital age, and a lot of people were like, oh, but I can be a DP now,
right.
Very quickly, you know what I mean? And I was myself still with the old way of thinking, oh, I have to be a camera assistant for a long time before to being myself a DP, So that's probably something like that. And every time I'm listening about someone saying, oh, you have to use this way, or you have to, we can't use that because this is too, there is too much resolution, or this is not good for, I don't know. I mean, every time I heard something like that, I'm like, oh, I want to take another pass. So if someone is taking this, I want to take something else. Yeah.
That's great. I mean, the thing that comes to my mind is whenever someone says, oh, no, we can't, or, oh, no, this is a given, I'm always like, well, let's test it. And they're like, no, there's no point. And I'm like, no, fucking test it. Why not? Go to Keslo or whoever Strange, or they'll just let you sit in there and play with their stuff for a while if someone has an opinion on equipment specifically. But even methods of doing it. You want to know what my hot take is? Then this is going to get me in trouble. But I was talking to the guys at Film Tools. So, you set up a C-stand, right? And you put the light over the tall leg, right?
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But if it's heavy on that leg, if you bump into that, if it's going to fall over, everyone goes, so just put more C-stands on it.
Mm.
But if we think about physics, if you just turn it so the long leg is that way and put one sandbag on it and then two short ones in front, you can bump that thing all day and it won't fall over. When the two short ones are in the back, it's now diagonally easy to push over.
Yeah.
Put more sandbags on it is like a waste of sandbags. That's my hot take. I'm going to get canceled for it.
That's a good final word.
Test it. You know what, everyone? Go test it. Go home, go grab a heavy light and test it. All right, man. Well, thanks so much for talking to me. That was a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to see the show when it comes out on Peacock, right? Peacock?
Yeah, Peacock, April 20.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, man. A lot of fun.
Thank you.
Frame and Reference is an Owlbot production. It's produced and edited by me, Kenny McMillan, and distributed by ProVideo Coalition. Our theme song is written and performed by Mark Pelly, and the F&R Mattbox logo was designed by Nate Truax of Truax Branding Company. You can read or watch the podcast you've just heard by going to provideocoalition.com or youtube.com/owlbot, respectively. And as always, thanks for listening.